Great having you all here. Welcome on this one of the last sessions of the conference. I realize that everybody's maybe a little bit tired, so I will keep it nice and tidy. My session today is about an alternative approach we used to migrate our LDAP server to another solution. We did that last year. The agenda. First of all, a little introduction. Then we move on what we use LDAP for in Jamf. Next is a little bit of context of our initial LDAP setup back in the time. And then we will discuss why we moved away from LDAP and how we did it. And then afterwards, a little bit Q&A. So let me introduce myself. I'm Karel Geerts. I'm a senior system engineer at DPG Media. I'm working 8 years as a Mac admin at DPG already. I've been a system engineer for much longer, not only on Apple devices, and an Apple enthusiast for way longer. Back when I was a student, I started working on Mac, and my first Mac was a eMac. Somebody worked on an eMac? Yeah, no, Pete did. So, a long time ago. So, not going to elaborate too much about my employer. I summarized it in 25 words, but I think I can do it even with less. So DPG Media is the Netherlands' largest and Flanders' leading media group. And we do all kinds of things. Do newspaper, TV, magazines, radio, and many more. These are some of the brands we have, but we have many more. So why am I speaking at MacAduck? Well, the first conference I attended was MacAduck, but that was back when it was in London. That was in 2018. I learned a lot from that. I followed inspirational sessions, and it helped me a lot in my day-to-day work, deploying and managing Macs. And it's now 7 years later, so I felt it was time to give something back to the community. And that's why I'm here today on the stage. So let me return to the actual topic. And let's see what we used LDAP for in Jamf. First of all, we have the authentication part. We want users to gain access to our Jamf Pro console, for example, engineers of our team, but also the service desk engineers. And we want them to use their directory credentials, like the one in Active Directory. So now we have access to the Jamf Pro console. We got to get permission to do stuff. So we use LDAP groups to give privileges to, for example, the service desk, which has only read privileges, and our team has a little bit more permissions. So we do that based on LDAP. We did that based on LDAP groups. Then you have the policy and config profile assignment part. In short, that's targeting or scoping, as you will, policies and configurations to computers based on the LDAP group membership, and that could also be used to set limitations. Fourth, gathering user and location data of a Mac. For example, the user department, email address, group membership, building, and so on. And lastly, self-service logon. In our case, we use the login of self-service for the service to gain access to more restricted applications. So, for example, applications that we do not want the standard users to execute. So a little bit of context of our environment. We are our main IDP is OneLogin. We are based on Google Workspace for email and collaboration tools. And we also have a hybrid Active Directory setup where there's a part of that is on-prem and a part of that is in the AWS cloud. We also have Azure AD, now known as Entra ID, for certain purposes like Dynamics 365. So when we started with our Jamf Pro setup, we had to decide what solution we would like to use for LDAP. So, like I said, we have Azure AD, but all the not all users were in there, and our identity team wanted to make too much dependencies on Azure AD because OneLogin was our main IDP. So that wasn't a right fit. Like I said, we also have Google Workspace, and there's a feature in Google Workspace called Google Secure LDAP. You can use that in Jamf. But that was, the Google Workspace was never meant to be a directory service. So not all, I think all users were in there, but there was not a right structure. So not an option too. So last option we had at that time was to use Jamf Infrastructure Manager. Then that worked pretty well for years. And then last year we were reviewing the solution, the Jamf solution, Jamf Infrastructure in short. And yeah, we concluded that we concluded a few things. First of all, the setup we have done for Jamf Infrastructure Manager in AWS was on an Ubuntu EC2 instance. It's pretty okay, but we had to put a public-facing network load balancer in front of it, and yeah, that was not that ideal, but it was the best possible setup at that time. But the Ubuntu version had become end of support, and should be replaced. But meanwhile, our security team didn't want us to make connections between SaaS applications and our Active Directory environment. So the Jamf version we used was the support from Jamf was dropped. We used a 1.x.x version, but in Jamf Pro 11.12 that had dropped. So that was an issue also. And yeah, it's also kind of a already older tool. Also, we had a error in Jamf Pro. It had to do with the check-in. It said it didn't check in anymore, but it was operational, so it wasn't good, so good also. And yeah, it was running on the Ubuntu, like I said, 24/7. So that is kind of costly to run instances in AWS on a full-time basis. So if you can say to your boss that you save some money, why not do it? So the idea was that we should be able to accomplish the same with systems we already have and already pay for. So we were asking ourselves, well, do we still need LDAP? Well, no, actually. Like I said, our IDP is OneLogin and it has all the building blocks we need. It has SSO authentication with SAML 2.0 and it has extensive API capabilities. So when we are going to look at mapping requirements, again the same list as before, we have 5 parts, and 3 of them we can tackle with the SSO technology. 2 of them we can tackle with the API of OneLogin. So to begin with the single sign-on, the first thing we need to use single sign-on is an app in your IDP. What we did was used a SAML custom connector. You also have one in the OneLogin marketplace available, but that isn't sufficient. We had to use the more advanced settings to make it work properly. Next one. This field in there is kind of important if you want to use groups. And if you use SSO, you want to use groups. And that field that maybe look a little bit odd, but it doesn't work without it. So we have spent a lot of time getting it to run, but that parameter has to be there. Then, when you go over to Jamf, you go in setting system single sign-on. You can enable single sign-on, use SAML authentication. You can see in there also a Jamf account. That is something fairly new that we are testing with that as we speak. Something important to note is that you should keep your failover your login URL somewhere, because when you make a mistake in your configuration, it could be that you're locked out. So it's good to have that so that you can log in with a local Jamf Pro account if something goes wrong. The IDP settings, so we use OneLogin, there are other options of other identity providers too. That information comes, the entity ID comes from your OneLogin app. Also, the metadata file has to be imported in here. You can download that from your OneLogin app. And you can see it comes back, the group field of some size ago. So this is really necessary to use groups. Some options. If you want to enforce SSO in a way, you have to deselect the option to allow users to bypass single sign-on authentication. Otherwise, it has no sense. And we also enabled single sign-on for self-service. I will come back to that later. So, using groups, that's an example of our test instance. You have to go to Settings, Systems, User Accounts and Groups, and create a standard user group, and that has to match exactly what you have in your identity provider, or in our case, which is the group is the same name as in Active Directory. I can tell lots more about SSO and the settings you need to do, but that would take too long. So there's more information on the Jamf Learning Hub. And also there is a very interesting video on YouTube from Januk from some years ago, from Sean Rabbit, about SSO and SAML 2.0. Like I said, we activated the self-service login for SSO. So we used that previously in LDAP to kind of limit the applications which were restricted to only be used by a service desk. But that doesn't work. There's no limitation option using SSO, so we had to find a way around that. So what did we do? We made a script. And so what does the script do? It checks if the logged in user in self-service, which is the row 3, begins with ENG, that is an engineering account, or ADM, which is an admin account. And if it is one of both, it will execute a policy, which is specified in the first parameter value. So that's $4. If you are not logged in, or logged in with another user, you will get a message that you do not have the appropriate permissions. So basically, what this does is do a check of your login and execute another policy via a custom trigger. So, made a little video. You can see in here that I'm not logged in. So, when we want to execute that policy, you will get a message, that's by the way in Swift dialog, that you are not allowed to use this self-service policy and you need to authenticate with the appropriate permissions. So once I log in with an ADM, an account starting with ADM or ENG in our case, you will be able to execute the policy. So when we go back to our list, we have already 3 parts done in green. So that's for SSO. Let's move over to the API part. So to begin with the policy and config profile assignment. So we do that based on group membership. And what we want to do is read the group membership. And what is the best way to do that is, in this case, is create an extension attribute. This extension attribute creates the OneLogin API. And the good thing is that the membership of groups includes nested groups, what was not available with the LDAP integration. So it has also an advantage. And then we use extension attributes, the extension attribute to as a criteria in the smart group, so we can scope policies and config profiles via that small group. So this is a list which can be that is, I think that my account is fairly long. I think it's, I already cropped it a little bit, but so. Well. So, this is the extension attribute, but let's break it down a bit. So first, you have the we have to generate an access token to gain access to the OneLogin API. The access token is based on the client ID and a client secret. Once we have the access token, we have to fetch the current logged in user. So in our case, the logged in user is in a format which equals the SAM account name. Then next, we query the OneLogin API based on the SAM account name. And then second command is a little tweaking to get the output right. And that's the result. This results in a variable which includes all the group membership. And that is then at the inventory update is uploaded to the inventory of the device and shown in the computer record. Next, for the user and location part, we also use a script. Also queries the user properties from the OneLogin API, and it sets the information in the user and location payload in the computer record. The policy, so the script is run by a policy, and the policy runs once every day at login, at recurring check-in, network state change, but that is for our needs. So again, let's break down the script. I left the first part about the authentication. That's not that interesting, but I will show a QR code later. You can find all the scripts and extension attribute and later on the presentation on my GitHub, so you can read it all there. So, first of all, your user properties are queried through the API of OneLogin. That is due to the nature of the API done in 4 separate variables. Then we provision a JSON file based on those user properties. And then we fill in the per property, like the email, first name, last name, department, position, and location. We fill in the right information in the variable based on the JSON file. Afterwards, we use that JSON file to save a PLIS file. Why do we do that? We noticed that when using the JSON file directly, characters like an ampersand, so special characters, weren't encoded right. So the result was that for example, a department field with the ampersand wasn't encoded right, and the field was blank. So that's not something you want. So that's why we wrote the information in a PLIS, because the encoding there is right. So, last thing, we have all the variables, we have all the information. Last thing to do is upload that information to the Jamf inventory, And there's a relatively simple command for that, Jamf recon, with a few parameters like end username, email, all things we want. For example, phone number is not there because it's not filled in for users. So when we execute the policy with the script, this is a result. So that is the same result we have when we had LDAP. So mission accomplished. We have checked all our boxes, everything in green. But maybe a few things. So this approach fits our needs, but maybe not yours. Maybe your situation is different, but I want to give this presentation as an inspiration how you can do things otherwise with tools you might already have. The Jamf Infrastructure Manager is not widely used anymore. I did a poll before my session, and yeah, the result is that a few people are still using it, some are moving away, but the majority isn't using Jim anymore. So maybe for those who are on Jim, maybe it's time for replacement. Yeah, you might already have all the tools that do the job. For us, that was the Wondergin API, but there might be other solutions, other possibilities. You might ask yourself, is LDAP still the way? It's an older protocol, and there are more modern technologies like SSO, API. So is that still the way to use LDAP anyway? So this solution is based on scripting. So that doesn't work for iOS or iPadOS. If you use it, LDAP for iOS or iPadOS, yeah, you maybe need to find another way, or in our case, we don't use it because they are shared devices, so it wasn't necessary for us to take that with us. So, are there any questions? Yes?
So one of the downsides of using an extension attribute, you showed it there, you have to provide credentials for your APIs, which then live on the machine and could potentially be exposed. Is there a reason you didn't do something that was totally in the cloud, just connect the two APIs together? So you could have an AWS Lambda, for instance, running each day to just update the Jamf inventory direct from the one login API.
I did look at that, but it wasn't kind of a issue right now. I checked it with identity.
Be aware that those credentials on the machine can be, if you get malware on your machine, it can monitor the scripts being run and pull those credentials out. Now, if they're only read-only credentials, it's
they're all actually read, and the expiration of the token is really small. So it expires relatively quickly. So it is not an issue. Yes, at the back.
You said you were exploring OIDC.
Yeah.
I think Jamf are pushing that compliance readiness. Could you say a bit more about that? Do you see that replacing something?
As I see it now, we're still testing it, but as we see it now, there is an option, if you select it, that the SAML part will keep working, but the OIDC part is mainly for the access to Jamf Pro and the new microservices. So you can keep using both. So yeah. Did you? Okay. Okay. Yeah, no worries. No worries. So you can contact me at on the Mac admin Slack. You can talk to me later if you want. Here's my LinkedIn information, and this is the repository on my GitHub page. So yeah, last thing is to thank you. I want to thank my team because I didn't think about this alone. I want to thank Macaduk for the opportunity to be here, and I thank all Mac admins for this great conference.